To order. We have a couple of, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Who moved that?
I did.
Mike? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we have a couple additions. They need to be approved unanimously to add. One is fire ban, and the other one is, we'll call it Dixon Approach. Dixon Approach.
I think I have that one.
So anything else anybody has? Could a motion to approve those, please?
Yeah.
Moved by Oscar. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, we have a delegation this morning. Andre, once again. So we'll turn it over to you, and if you want to lead us through your presentation. Start.
First of all, good morning, everyone. So yeah, much like last year, I'll kind of go through. So much like past years, I'm not presenting any new papers to all this. So if you remember last year, should be easy to follow this year as well. Along the way, any questions, feel free to send them my way, or if it's after the meeting, I'm always available, right? So basically what I'm going to do is go through what your assessment role was comprised of last year versus this year, and point out any changes. So the first sheet, you guys are probably all familiar with it, but I'm just going to go over, spend 1 minute to go through it. So basically, if you look at it, it's divided into 3 parts. The top part being your land, the middle part being your improvements, which is your building assessments, and the bottom third being assessments that your chief provincial assessor, which is the province, puts together for you guys, right? So the sheet, as you move from left to right, you'll notice all the categories: commercial, industrial, residential, farmland. Keep going to your right. That is the numbers you used last year for taxation. Keep going to your right. Then it refers to the 2023 roll, which is your new numbers you're going to tax on. Keep going. The difference is expressed in both dollar increase, decrease, or percent increase, decrease, right? So we'll just start with that. Okay, so I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit, but we'll get through it. So the first category up is commercial, then it's industrial. There's not much change there. You can look at it for yourself, right? I mean, there's no ball breakers there anywhere. First one that you come to that has some change is your residential. And of course, we're dealing with land at that point. We're staying with the top third there, right? So you'll notice your residential land's up roughly 5.4 million, or 3.25%. So for the most part, your increase, your land values, which would be lands at market value, have not changed great amounts across the MD, other than rec properties. And what I mean by rec properties is Clear Lake. Clear Lake's always been one of those places where I truly believe, with lack of sales, it's hard for me to say I believe assessments should be double. No sales, that's hard to do. This year we've had sales that would, there's one sale that I could argue it was 2.5 acres, and of course it was improved with a kind of a cabin on it. But I can make an argument that 2.47 acres was worth $500,000. So when I have these sales, I have to make use of them, and I have to meet the valuation standards, which is market value. So when I have these sales in front of me, I can't disregard them. I have to meet the standards, so those sales actually show up in this year's land valuations at Clear Lake. So $5.4 million, for the most part, comes from Clear Lake. So I'm just pointing this out because when notices come out, usually our phones start to ring, and usually it's the places that have increased or have seen the largest increases that will be calling, right? So expect calls from the wreck property, which is more than Clear Lake. It'll be Arm Lake. It'll be the rest of the lakes as well. But largest increase, hands down, Clear Lake, right, on the land part. That's only the land. Now I'm going to a little later touch on the assessments on cottages out there, right? So we keep going down that list. The next one is farmland. Well, we don't make any more farmland, so not a big deal. So I'm just going to venture from this page for a second, because you can see where, like, there's been growth, right? There's been an increase, I should say, in assessment, but truly, without knowing how that come about, that number is, I wouldn't say meaningless, but there's something more in that number you should be made aware of, and that's that increase in assessments come in two ways. One is a general increase in market value. That's great, but truly, if I said your assessments in the ND went 20% up across the board, and that was the only reason your assessments went up. So truly, all I'd say is that would mean that if you didn't reduce your mill rate, you'd be asking for more taxes from the same old properties, the same old buildings, right? So that's part of how your assessments could increase. The other part is called real growth. So there is a new house built, right? That is a new building that you would be able to tax on this year that wasn't there last year. So if you turn to the next page, you're going to notice that I've shown all the increases, but I also show you how that increase came about. Was it growth? That's what you really want to see? Or is it just an inflationary factor? And that inflationary factor, like I said, it doesn't generate new taxes. It generates more taxes from the same old property, right? So you really want to see it on the growth side. And so just keep that in mind, and I'll kind of refer to that second page a couple more times here, but you'll kind of get the feeling where I'm coming from with that, right? So if you keep going down, we're still staying with the land. You'll notice that all of a sudden we get into Camp Wainwright. So you'll notice the first one up is residential in Camp Wainwright. Market value as it relates to the building site, Camp Wainwright, is based solely on market value in the town of Wainwright. That's exactly it. So if we've seen a large increase in the residential land values in town, that would affect you out there. This year, the town of Wainwright, land values are just stable, right? So when you look at the residential portion of the land and stuff, no change. That's because there's been no change in the town of Wainwright. So the feds have asked that that's how we value the base, and their appraisers and stuff, they make convincing arguments as to why we should do that. So that's what that's based on. Coming down, farmland, whatever, that's not a ball breaker, small amounts. The next one you come up to is other, as it relates to Camp Wainwright, and you'll see that assessment's up 20 million. That's a good chunk, right? So you probably want to know, well, why did that go up? So for the most part, that's made up of lands out in the range, right? So when it comes time to land out in the base, there's two valuation standards. One is market value, and the other one is an agricultural use value. They're both solely based on use. So out there's two uses. Some of the lands are used for grazing purposes, and then there's the part out there that is solely used for training purposes. So the acres used for grazing, those acres are assessed at farmland rates, $37 an acre. Now, all of a sudden, if there's more land that I can value at market value, well, that market value's $1,600 per acre. So large discrepancy as it comes time to assessment, and if you look at basic just use out there, right? So to account for the extra 20 million, what's happened this year or last year for grazing is they made use of fewer animal unit months out there, which, and how do you do that? Well, that's because you either had fewer animals grazing out there, or you had them grazing out there for a shorter amount of time, right? So then what happens is that fewer acres used for grazing, it leaves more acres at market value. So what's happened last year is they made use of fewer acres for grazing purposes, which left more at market value. So they made use of 8,500 fewer acres for grazing than they did in the previous year. So if you work that out, that's $20 million, but it doesn't solely come from the fact that they used fewer acres. Remember I said part of it is market value. Last year, the acres used for training out there were at market value farmland, $1,500 per acre. Well, this year we've got them at $1,600 per acre. So that $20,000 increase comes in two ways. They made use of fewer acres, and then the value we use per acre for the areas, acres not used for grazing, has gone up as well, right? So I kind of broke that down. The fact that we went from 15 to 1,600 per acre made a difference of 13.5 million, and the rest of the $20 million increase, which was 7.8 million, comes in the form of increase in I said that wrong. The first one was because they used fewer acres. That accounted for 13.5 million. The fact that we went from 15 to 1,600 per acre accounted for 6.8 million of the 20 million. So that's how the $20 million increase comes about, right? I know it's kind of, I mean, if I wasn't clear on any of that, let's hear it. I can maybe say it a different way, or hey, if there's any questions later, I say I'm around, right? So that really concludes your land part of your assessment. You'll notice that your land increase is 25.5 million is what we show, right? In the top third there, right-hand side. So then when you're finished with your land, you move on to your buildings, which is the middle third of this chart. Again, there's different categories. We go commercial, industrial, yada, yada, right? Commercial, not a brawl breaker, not going to spend any time on that. Industrial, well, the only industrial land that would fit in there would be like Parrish and Heimbecker and crop production services. So, yeah, the assessments are up there because they've replaced tanks. CPS has got some extra buildings out there, so it kind of accounts for a little bit of it. Next one is your residential improvements. Now, that's made up of both, again, rec properties and your residential properties across the whole municipality. So I already alluded to the fact that if you have property at Clear Lake, you're going to feel this. So there's actually two areas in the MD well, I'll point out the two areas in the MD that have seen the largest increases, and that's if you own property at Clear Lake and or if you own property at Ascot Heights, you're going to feel this because those two areas have seen the largest increases. So, yeah, you might be prepared to take a few calls there, right? Type of thing. So, but I mean, it is what it is. Staying with Clear Lake. In the last 3 years, I have 18 sales out there. And that's amazing. I haven't seen those kind of sales for the last 40 years. It's quite shocking. But just to give you a little example here about Clear Lake itself, I've just grabbed three of the bigger properties out there. Talk about increases. Carson Soucy, you're going to see the assessment on that one go up about $300,000. Richard Glover's purchase of Shane Stafford's, that's $180,000 up. Rainier Rajat, $245,000 up. So like I said, this year we're fortunate in that we've tested the market. We know what the large parcels are worth of land, and we know what upper end property is worth, because Carson Soucy paid $1.3 million for his property, right? So again, these sales can't be disregarded. They have to be accounted for in our assessments, right? So yeah, we're going to hear some calls there, but with these kind of sales, I can defend assessments, right? So the residential improvements, you'll see again, that's up that $25.6 million.
Andre, just use roll numbers, not names.
Pardon me?
Just use roll numbers or not names.
Oh, okay. Okay, I won't mention no names
Yeah.
anymore. It was the only time I was going to mention names, but
Okay.
I will remember that for next time. Okay. Okay, so basically explain then why your residential assessments went up in the MD, your residential improvements. So I'm just going to say, well, okay, well then we see 25.6 million, but what's that made of? Is it all an increase in market, or are we looking at truly new buildings that are making this number go up, right? So if you flip to the second page, you'll notice your mill rate codes show up on the left-hand side. Your code 4, that is your occupied residential land and improvements. And you'll notice that's up 21.5 million from last year. If you keep going to the right, then all of a sudden you'll see an amount in growth, and you'll see an amount in inflation. Well, 43% comes in the form of growth, real growth, new buildings. But 57% of your total increase comes from inflation, right? So, I mean, it would be nicer to, if we could flip those two around, it would be more meaningful to the MD, right? But the fact that you experience growth is good, and we have, right? It's just there's some years where we'll see a larger number in growth and a lower number in inflation. That changes from one year to the next. But the fact that you did get growth is a good thing, right? So just keep that in mind, that every time you see an increase or a decrease, flip to the next page. Is it, how did that change come about? Is it growth or is it inflation, right? So you can kind of see there what happened to your residential. Coming down, the next one is M&E. Don't get that confused with your oil field. The only M&E we have other than the oil field would be the fertilizer blending facilities. It's not much, right? Come down, then all of a sudden you got Camp Wainwright. And that again is your buildings out there. And of course residential is residential. Other would be your commercial buildings. So truly just to point out this whole inflationary versus growth factor, let's stay with the residential buildings in Camp Wainwright. Turn to the next page. Down at the bottom of your list, your mill rate code for that is 86. It's the second from the bottom. You'll notice that 100% of the change in assessment out there has come from inflation. There's no new buildings out there. Basically, that's what we're saying. Like they're basically removing buildings. I haven't seen a new, other than there's ongoing renovations to some of the row housing, which is minimal. But for the most part, there's not much money being thrown out there for new construction. All right. So, flip back to the first page again. You'll notice that if you, middle of the page, it says total improvements. No, I won't even go there. We'll leave that alone. Okay, so basically that covers off other than oil field assessments, I think that covers off all the factors, points I wanted to make out there. So I guess at this point I'm going to ask, is there any more questions before we move on to the oil field part of things?
How do you assess the inflationary?
The inflationary? Because, well, every year what we do is we analyze all the sales. All the sales are sent up to the province as well, right? So, yeah, they basically,
On the base?
on the base,
Yeah.
it's basically based on the inflationary factor. Well, it's just the system figures out, if I increase the assessment to meet market, and there's actually no buildings, and the system knows there's no buildings, because I've put that in there,
Yeah.
then it knows what inflation is, right? So, yeah, and so basically, yeah, what they start off, the system looks at it and says, well, if your assessments went up 10%, but you show
I'm just
no
wondering,
buildings with
if there's
inflation,
no- I mean, you don't have sales out there to go off, so then where do you get that back?
that from the town of Wainwright and from sales in the end.
Okay.
So the assessment on the base is based on mostly on town sales, right? 'Cause-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part,
that's it.
it's what happens in town reflects on what happens on the base.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some exceptions to that, but yeah, you're right. For the most part, that's, so I guess that would have been, Bill, probably a better way to explain it.
Yeah.
Okay, continue on then.
Okay, so like I said, you know what? If anybody wants clarifications on some of this later, I'm around, right?
Okay.
Okay. Your third page up there, I always throw that in there because it shows the growth patterns from one year to the next, right? Like this year, you have an extra 75.5 million to tax on.
An assessment.
Yeah, so you can compare that to past years, right? Gets you. So it's been, hey, it's 2014 since the last time you guys have seen that kind of increase.
Yeah.
So that's good in itself. Okay, so then, the last page. So this relates to designated industrial property, which is, for the most part here, what I'm referring to would be your oil field assessments, right? So, last year, I was out there to review 20% of all the oil field sites in the MD. So on this piece of paper, I've basically shown that I've looked at 253 properties in the MD. And the next one down, I'm basically saying that of the 253 properties, 142 of them experienced change. So 56% of all the properties that were looked at experienced change. So here's what I done. I'm leaving this with you guys. If someone is interested, they can thumb through this. These properties have experienced big changes. Not all of them. Some of them have, right? So like I've talked to the auditors and I say, of the assessments I take care of out in the MD, it gets audited annually and every 8 years there's a detailed audit. If they found 56% of my property assessments out there were wrong, they wouldn't allow you guys to use those numbers to tax upon. Versus here's designated industrial property, goes unaudited every year. So, and I've always preached this,
Yeah.
there's a need out there for someone to look over their shoulders because there's no audit, there's no one issuing them a report card. Who's to say what kind of a job they say they're doing great. Based on what? They've never been able to tell me. There's got no measuring stick, nothing. Like, that's fine to say you're good, but based on what? When I issue you a report card that says 56% of your property, your assessments are wrong, that to me is, there's no one else out there to issue a report card to the province. I'm probably the last standing guy that is actually coming around behind the government doing this. And to say 56% of the property is incorrect, that tells me there has to be a check in place. You call it detailed audit, you call it whatever you want. But, I understand why the government feels I'm a fly in their ointment. When I'm preaching stuff like this, and on the other side, they're saying, look how good we are. They would love to see me gone, right? When I'm gone, I don't know who's going to be doing this. And here's another thing. This is the same thing that's happening in the MD Provost. So anybody who believes that the MD of Provost, the MD of Wainwright is unique and not, this is happening across the entire province, type of thing. And it's unfortunate because last week I met 2 weeks ago, I met with the Chief Provincial Assessor and Tori Bachman. What's her position? She's the Executive Director of.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you know what? They truly believe that everything's going good, and my issue isn't with the people that are working there. That's not it. It's government policy. That's where we're falling short. It's that they're doing an inspection cycle out there, and they're not opening every door. It's called a selective inspection cycle. We talk to all the operators. These people are not getting into every property. They're not opening every door. And then the province is relying on self-reporting for assessment because they'll say, oh, that catches everything. I'm out in the oil field. Self-reporting is nothing new. It's been in place for 40-some years. It never worked 40 years ago. To think it's going to work today? Well, this proves it's not. You talk to the operators, they'll say, Andy, we're not asking you to learn how to become an operator. Then don't ask us to become an assessor. It's not. It's the only thing that gets reported is the big new facilities because those costs are available to the company. It's easy to report. You get to material transfer where they're buying older equipment from another competitor and bringing it over, and those things are going unreported, right? Maintenance is another one that is not getting reported. It's just the big new facilities, and how many of those do we see these days? It's not good. So I'll leave the problems alone. So yeah, I mean, there's some big change. Like I just grabbed a couple of the bigger changes, eh? Like Bruce, you're familiar with that surge battery just east of you?
Yeah.
Well, I doubled the assessment on that. 1.4 million was the assessment last year. Now it's over 3 million. And I basically have sent the assessment back to the province saying, based on my inspections, you still haven't input this, you haven't input that. So there's even more changes coming to that one, right? So, I mean, that's a big one. And then Clio, there's that new compressor. Well, that's $1 million.
So when you report, so when we find these numbers and you report that to the assessment group, do they change, do we know if they make changes? So they take the information that you give them and they update our numbers, our assessment numbers?
That's what I asked of them the first go around.
Yeah.
Right? So here's what happened. Here's all the changes I've submitted
Yeah.
to them. Then what happens is when your new assessments come out at the end of Feb,
Yeah.
I ask that they provide me with all the industrial detail sheets.
Yeah.
And then I go through every one of those to ensure that these changes are
Yeah.
actually input.
Yeah.
And then here's my second pile. So, of the 142 sites that experienced change, 10% of them I had to send back to the province because they didn't input all my changes, right?
Okay.
So, so no, I keep track.
Yeah.
When I tell them to do something, if they're not going to do it, then I want to know why.
Yeah.
Right? And I've talked to them, and no, it's not because they went out there and said, oh, no, Andy, you interpreted things wrong, and nothing like that. It seems like everything I give them, they're more than willing to put it in,
Yeah.
right? So,
It's just that they're not checking the output.
yeah, so your Q1 is coming out in May, I think it is, where you get your revised assessments for linear. So expect some changes there coming, right?
Okay.
It's not the end of it yet, eh?
Yeah, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and make sure those
Oh,
changes that you guys have implemented are actually following through to the assessment that they're putting on the industry.
oh, definitely, but when I get the revised
Yeah.
in May here,
Yeah,
yeah, every one of these will be checked off
Yeah,
against
okay.
that. I'm not going out there to do this and not having it placed on the road.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise
yeah,
I'd say,
no,
why
it's
I'm out
good.
there, right? So
yeah,
rest assured, what I find for change will make it to your road.
yeah, that's good. Well, that's what we wanted to see, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I mean, whether they like it or not, if more municipalities did that, I think they would recognize, because every time we've met with them, we've brought this up, that the assessment isn't correct and it's not working. And they keep telling us to, provide information, get stuff. So we are doing what they're asking, but it's just as another step that we have to pay for.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I agree with you.
it's worth paying for it when you find that different of assessment though.
Yeah, that's why, like, staying on that page, like, it shows your growth
Yeah,
this
yeah,
year,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's misleading, because when I say 56% of the properties have experienced change, that's not always an increase.
No, I mean, that's right. I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah, so like I point out a couple, like, we're probably all familiar, like Quest Fire Energy
Yeah.
and 46-7. That place has been mothballed for 3-4 years,
Yeah.
vandalized, everything. Well, there's still $1.5 million assessment on that.
Yeah,
So when I go around and I say, well, sorry, I just lost $1.5 million for you. Synovus on some of these batteries here, there's 3-4 of them there that no longer are on your assessment roll.
yeah.
Well, those things had $1.5 million each, right? So I'll be honest with you, when I was doing all this last year, I didn't know if I actually was going to be able to show a positive number on
Yeah,
your roll. So
yeah.
when I seen the $7.5 million increase,
yeah.
that was a good feeling, because I wasn't sure where I was going to land up with, 56% of the properties
Yeah.
experiencing change, right? So that's where that sits. And like I said, I'm going to leave this.
Yeah, okay.
If anybody is interested in taking a look at it, take a look at it. Sometimes I wish I could present this to the province when they're saying, look how good we are.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm here for,
Yeah.
so I'll leave that alone.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I know we asked you to do that, so it's a good report. We were waiting for that to find out where we were at. So,
Yeah, yeah.
But that gives us better information when we go meet, because we meet with the assessors and municipal affairs. So, I mean, this is the information that we can take to them. It's a hard fact, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've been always, I mean, they've never said they're not going to accept stuff. I mean, show us what it is and we'll take a look at it. So I think they know they've got an issue as well. But it's just how many people are reporting it before it gets to be a big enough issue they're going to make a policy change.
Agree with you.
Okay.
So basically, like, I know your time's valuable, so I didn't
Okay.
want to use up a lot of it, but.
No, it's important though.
So, is there any other questions that relate to something I haven't covered, something I haven't covered? Is there anything?
Yeah, Andy, I want to get just some clarity in my mind. I mean, when you're talking the tax increase on the base, for instance, on the land, where do you get that from? I mean, you assess the land at agriculture, if there's a cow on it for 37, and then you said if there's no cattle on it, you're assessing it at $1,600. So where do you get that figure? I mean, I can't see anything changing out there. I don't see the numbers changing. I mean, is it based on whether it's fenced or not fenced,
No.
or where do you get that from?
The province reports, right? So the province keeps track of all the animals out there, and they keep track of how many days they spend out there. So that's all given to us
Okay,
by the province.
Okay.
right?
good.
And then, like I said, the 1,600 per acre bill, that would be, in my mind, a conservative number today. But you got to remember, it's based on productivity, right? I mean, sandier soils, so all of a sudden, at the bottom end pasture stuff, we're talking land sales that
Yeah.
occur outside the MD.
Yeah.
And you remember too, like I could actually show a little larger number than that, but you gotta remember, there are issues out there that we don't deal with on this side of the fence, right? Access. There's roads all over the place here. Fence. I mean, I got sales, and they're of a quarter section, it's fenced. Well, I go out there, there's many quarter sections
Yeah.
unfenced, right? So
Yeah.
there's many of these factors that their appraisers have brought to us, saying, you should consider that. And we go, well, I do. If I really wanted to, I could pin you at 1,800 per acre. I'm not. It accounts for that, right?
What about the infrastructure out there? Is it in the area, the infrastructure in the area? Do you assess that as well out there, I assume?
Out in the base?
Yeah,
Yeah. So what we do is stuff like the airport. Right? Got us tucked out there.
Yeah.
So basically what we've done is we actually figured out the total number of acres out there. And then from that, we said, well, what's at market value? The balance will be at farmland market. Yeah, I should say that. So what we've done is, yeah, areas that should be valued at market value, much like the base or the airport. There's 20 acres out there. That's valued at market value. Some of the, what's the name of them villages they built out there?
Afton
Yeah.
Village.
yeah.
That's all at market value. So it accounts for so many acres. So at the end of the day, Camp Wainwright, right proper, there's, 320 acres. So that's at market value. That comes out. So we account for all the lands that are used for both training and lands that are used for residential, commercial, and lands that are used for grazing. So the infrastructure, when I assess something at market value out there, the lands at market value too, includes site utilities, right?
Okay.
Get your infrastructure there, right?
I got a question, Andy. So out at Clear Lake, 5.4 million assessment is for land only, correct?
Yes, you got that from the first third?
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you do have sales out there, and I think you mentioned 3 in the past year, what formula do you use so much as a cabin assessment, and how much of it goes back to the land?
Yeah. So we had one vacant land sale out there. There's been one, right? And that was, if I remember right, it was under half an acre, but it was a larger size. And so what happens, it's the only vacant one we truly had. But when a sale occurs, what we do is we remove what we believe to be the value attributable to the building out of it, right? Like I
But
talked about.
how do you get that number? Is it based on market assessment up to date to
Yeah,
replace
so what we
that?
do is we start off at a depreciated replacement cost, and it's been indexed up to market value,
Okay.
right? So we just, if it sold for 650,000, like one of the bigger parcels did sell for with a little cabin, well, we just look at it and say, well, then the assessment on the building, which is arrived at, like I mentioned, it's a depreciated replacement cost indexed to market value. Well, then you should be able to remove that from the total sale price. Gives you an indication of what land would be worth.
values. Okay.
But short of vacant land sales, that is the only acceptable way of doing it. right?
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. I think that covers off. Thank you very much.
Okay. Like I said, I don't venture away too
Yeah.
far, right?
Yeah, you're not too far away. Okay, thanks. Thanks.
That's it.
Yeah, or get charged.
Okay, so that's yours.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Take care.
Yeah, have a good day. Okay, motion to go in camera. Bruce, all in favor? Opposed, if any, is carried. Okay, shut the So we can pass.
We are not streaming, we're just,
Yeah,
Hello.
she's learning.
Oh, say, can you see?
Well, we're live right now. Okay, you had one page there you wanted to show us, so.
so I've included a page. So I guess with the change in the mill rates, our property tax notices will change. So we'll no longer have the 0.3 mills for the fire, the 0.35 for the rec, the 0.0123 for the 911. Is that those are not, none of those are legislative requisitions, so they won't be showing on there, right?
So
They're
what will
all
they look like?
they're all included with the general municipal rate. So
General
it'll
rate.
just be in that municipal rate. So for normal residential notice, property tax notice, it'll just be the municipal rate on land and improvements, and then there'll be the Alberta School Fund or the separate school fund requisition that comes off, and then there'll also be the Battle River Foundation requisition, and that's it. If you have an industrial property, there will be the same municipal rate, the Alberta School Fund, Battle River Foundation, and then there'll also be the designated industrial property requisition, so the DIP requisition. So that's the 0.76 we pay the province to assess those DIP properties, right? So
So will you give us those little white laminated cards again? And if
Yeah.
you
This
did,
is the town.
Will they just, that
Oh.
general's just gonna be sizably bigger and we're gonna have to know to say that includes?
yeah, well,
Oh,
so
okay.
that brings me to this sheet. So I give everyone what the town distributed with their property tax notices. So
It looks like that there.
yeah. So the one page that has the buffalo on it and their logo is their budget. So we put that on our website as well. We put a one-pager budget, which I gave you a copy of too, but it's also on the screen here. So this one-page budget, right? That would be, I would like to distribute that. I mean, again, it goes on the website. But then on the flip side, they have how your tax dollars are spent. So we're taking away, some of the details of where the taxes are going off the property tax notice. So I'd like to do something that gives a little more transparency if we could. So something like this. Now, whether or not it's a detailed breakdown line by line, or if we did some type of pie chart or something, just a description of where some of the money's going. So the requisitions, what's going, the percentage that goes to public works, recreation, kind of all that. So that's still to be determined, and I
Yeah.
want to come up with something and
Yeah, okay.
do that. But
We can see that at a later date.
you
though,
bet,
once
yeah.
you made
Before
that.
before we distribute the property tax
Yeah,
notices.
yeah.
So
And
that's just
And that'll take a little.
People want to know.
July.
yeah.
Okay, you guys okay with this?
Yeah.
So that handout that I give you, that has the budget on the front, the
Yeah.
second page now is all the changes since planning, or at the very top, we had the surplus prior to planning was 639,974. Now during planning, when we were here a little while ago, we made 4 changes. So we had the side-by-side going to recreation, the pickleball court, the repairs and maintenance for the group site at Arm Lake, and then the development or economic development assessment.
Okay.
So those 4 changes, so to start today, we had a $524,000 surplus projected.
Yeah.
Now, Andy had given us some changes subsequent to planning. So a lot of these changes on this sheet are due to assessment changes. Some minor ones, with the fire areas, there's a little bit of a change, $43, $6 that changed due to a reduction in linear assessment. And then we have okay, so this next one, so the line 123-100-03, that's an allocation increase. So it's not a requisition for the fire. We're allocating an amount to the reserve, but the Edgerton Fire Department hasn't had an increase in their allocation for a number of years, I think 3 or 4 years at least. So they're looking for, our share would be another 3,662 to come
Oh, yeah.
from the
okay.
reserve. So-
Outside of, yeah, yep.
it's showing in here under the revenue because we bring that in because it's coming from the reserve. We bring it in here. There's an additional line down closer to the bottom for 3,662. So it's an in and an out on our budget. It's just those accounts have changed, so I've included it on here. So another assessment change, so then, like Bruce alluded to, there was a number of repairs on engine
forgot
one,
about
but
tires.
tender 6 is a 100% MD vehicle. It is due for tires, battery replacements, they weren't fully charging, I guess, so, or $6,000 is what we're looking at for there. So again, it's coming into the reserve, coming in from the reserve as revenue, but there's also a corresponding decrease down right here. So we see a few more assessment changes when it comes to the recreation allocation. Again, for Wainwright, Irma, Chauvin, Edgerton remained remained unchanged when it came to assessment changes. Now we're getting into this 111, 110, so the real property, so that's our municipal tax and the education requisition, all the amounts that we levy on the properties. We've seen a little bit of an increase on there since Andy's changes since planning. For the electric power and pipeline, we saw a $50,000 decrease. And then we saw the big changes in the DND requisition, or the DND assessment. So that resulted in a $171,000 increase in taxes. Now that's before the mill rate increase. So that was at the old mill rate where we charged them that lower non-residential mill rate without the additional 10 mills on there, 10.2 mills I believe it was. So that was prior to any mill rate change that we saw in this new bylaw. So then the next line, this $2,395,000, that's the result of changing the mill rate, the full rate for the whole D&D.
So, are you sure you're not including the 171 twice? It's not including the 2.3?
Yeah, no, it's not including the 2.3.
No, because part of it is assessment change that normally happens over the land and stuff.
Yeah, so.
And the other is the increase of using the full mill rate.
Yeah, so that happened just be with the old rate, yeah.
So the 171,000 is what Andy talked about this morning about.
It could be some of that,
Some of
yeah.
that, but 8,600 acres plus moving the assessment up to 1,600.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that increase was brought in before,
Right.
but yes.
Yeah, okay.
So then down to 163,840, so that's another revenue account for ASB. James isn't here, but I don't know, Shelby is there, but for the legislative activities grant, they've received another 42,000, so it was at 123,970, I believe, so we're adding 42 from that. So there was a general pot, I think, that the province had allocated to the municipalities. They split it up amongst them all. They get an extra 42. I believe a few years ago they were higher than what they're currently getting anyways, and it had been reduced over the past few years, but now they're kind of getting back closer to where they were. So that's a bonus. So this repairs and maintenance. So we did get a quote in for the back patio area. It was $2,550 more than what we had initially budgeted for $5,000. So there's that. So again, we talked about the provision for allowances. So we don't know if we're going to receive that full 2.395 million. So that's kind of coming off. It's basically a wash for this year. If we don't get the extra, and if we do get the extra, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So again, I talked to the repairs and maintenance. All these assessment changes just come off as an expenditure because those are contributed to the reserves. The only other changes would be this railroad crossing. So this is the maintenance for that Range Road 50 crossing. So the new crossing that was put in, I guess it's completed, and now we pay maintenance on that. So they've already give us a bill. This is what the remaining 3/4 of the year will cost us.
Just east of Heath.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have, so Clear Lake water sampling. So Kim had thought that 24 they were going to do this, but I guess they've moved that up to 2023 here. So
Okay.
they want to do the assessment for the water this year.
Yeah.
And last,
Alberta Lake Water Management?
Yeah. Yeah, we started that.
yeah, that's not an MD thing.
Yeah, we started that a few years ago. We put it in a baseline, and then we've been monitoring it Every what, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
3 years, I think?
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years we do another
It's
study.
not done in-house.
What's that?
It's not done.
No, it's not done in-house, it's in Lakeland Management.
Come back to sewer wall.
Check and see where the nitrates or whatever else is.
And lastly, we have the extension for the ramp out front needs to be extended a bit for slope.
Oh, this one here. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so we had taken into account at planning, we knew the changes, you know, getting rid of the screw piles and just doing the cement there, so this kind of negates a little bit of that, but. So overall, then we have, since planning, a increase in the surplus of 149,360. So then, coming into today, 673,910 was the projected surplus. We've reduced that by 120,000 for the top up at Wainwright, and the seed plant 70,000. So now we're left with 483,910.
So if we give Cleo all their money, we're down to 100,000.
Well, writing off, and that's where I kind of struggle with the budget here a little bit. Writing off those taxes doesn't really affect our cash flow this year, right? We're not.
Okay.
So I don't really think would want to put it in the budget because it doesn't affect the cash that we're actually going to receive in the years. We weren't planning for it, but
You didn't order signs, hey? That's not in here.
Didn't order
The new
what?
signs, we didn't agree on anything, did we?
For what?
The new signs.
For signs for out
Front and
front,
back.
for the building.
We didn't agree on anything, did we?
You want to see some mock-up?
Something
Yeah.
else. Okay, I couldn't
Yeah,
remember.
I mean, the price will come with the mock-up, right?
Yeah, I couldn't remember, sorry.
Okay.
Brain-
Anything else?
Brain fart.
Are we
just trying
ready
to think
for-
of what else I handed out there.
Are we ready for the, so we're
We
going
should
to
have
go
had
through the
ourselves
budget?
on the back for having
What,
surplus.
so what's the
That's what we
process
do
on the
the
budget,
farm.
Kelly?
Just need a motion to approve capital and operating capital.
Have we approved pickleball?
Yeah?
No. Not yet.
We could-
Pickleball, Ray was supposed to bring back some information, we'll come to him, we'll come to a meeting and then we'll make a final decision.
Just to let you guys know, the number did go down by, I think it's $15,000 and it's presented on.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet
Okay.
Jesus.
Yeah, well.
But
get-
as Andy said in his assessment review, Clear Lake is gonna need something, their assessment.
So that could be the second court?
What's that for,
Okay.
buddy?
They can drive to Arm Lake to play pickleball, hey?
No, I'm just, like, we don't
They
have to.
can drive,
bring them all the
they
budget.
can
We
drive
don't
to
have
Arm
the
Lake to
budget
play
line.
Yeah,
pickleball.
Arm Lake should have
They
it.
go to Arm Lake for ice cream, they can play pickleball.
Yeah, we
up
need,
there.
yeah.
They do.
I was
All
kind of
them people
hoping
from
like if
Clear
it
Lake.
goes through in that,
Yeah.
to keep track of it for the year, just to see, you know,
Why
like
am I
how many
needing
times it
to-
gets rented out and stuff.
We should put a
what?
bar
You know,
out there.
because it's kind of a multi.
Now you're talking, the fundraiser.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
Later
okay,
is
I'll
lots
see,
of
yeah.
bar.
Okay.
A girl in a golf cart,
Yeah.
shorty shorts.
And then I've got, and then I got the other additions
Well,
here.
it would sell.
And the addition of the farm.
What about these
Are you
policies?
Sales going.
play pickleball? No? I did years ago. Oh, did you?
This one.
Yeah. Well, as you get older, it takes less and less to be busy.
It strings your nerve.
I found that out. When I plan to do something today, it takes 3 days.
So we're taking the same.
Yeah.
Range Road 101, how are we making out with that? I think we started this
We applied,
process.
got applied for a grant and we're waiting for a different grant to transfer Canada.
So that's the one
Okay.
to turn and go over the tracks at a different spot?
Approval comes out around March, April. So I'll check to see if we run this.
So then if it isn't approved, what?
Have council.
You got 2 more years.
Oh, yeah, build the road? Yeah, just do it without a grant.
Oh, just build the road and wait for the,
It's the crossing that's gonna be the expense. The arms,
Yeah.
put in, yeah.
has 2 lanes in there too, isn't it? 2 tracks?
Okay, this isn't on the agenda.
No?
And do we field lots of calls on how our
But
taxes?
if
So
we
then-
put it in before the 2
No.
tracks, then
No,
it's their
because I'm
problem.
not, I'm not
To
going to
make it-
ask for this. If it was on there, I would, but it's not. I'm not. Huh? Okay. Okay, okay, are you guys ready to come out of camera and go start making some motions, or do you want more discussion on the budget, or we've been through it?
Dixon approach, you,
Well, that's all coming afterwards.
okay?
It's just that we can't do anything.
I'll make a motion to come out.
So, well,
How's my
okay, just
hair?
a minute. I want to make sure everybody's ready to come out.
How's your hair?
Bill, you want to stay here forever?
Do you have any questions, Bill? No, I want to make sure nobody's cut off discussion.
Well, no, I guess it's not related to this budget, it's future budget. So we're talking about
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Bruce has a motion to come out of camera.
I heard.
All in favor? Okay. We got a copy of that motion.
We're good.
My agenda. Just about. Well, you're done all the hard work. Okay, okay, you need a motion to approve the tax agreement. Oh, no, we're getting away from that. Okay. Need a motion to authorize $120,000 per year for the additional funding for years 2023 and 24 for the Wainwright Fire area.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. I need a motion to authorize $70,000 to the additional funding for the Wainwright seed cleaning plant for a scale project.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Oscar. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, need a motion that the Municipal District Wainwright approve the 2023 operating and capital budget as presented and amended, and it further amends the 2023 operating budget and capital budget attached to these minutes. Need a motion to approve the budget, still
Yep.
wish? Right, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, tax bylaw number 1692. Do we need to go into, we don't have to have a recess for this. We can just keep moving right along. Okay. Need a motion for the read for the first time that the bylaw takes effect and the third and final reading today. So first reading moved by
Bruce.
Bruce, thanks. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, any, it's carried. Second reading moved by Richard, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Motion to proceed. Bill? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Third and final time.
I can do that.
Thanks, Robin. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
We're done.
No, we have one more. Dixon approach.
Two more, don't we?
Two more,
Two
yeah.
more.
Two more fired.
Oh, what's the second one?
Fire.
Oh, fire ban, sorry about that. Fire ban. I have heard from some folks that maybe we should be putting a fire ban on. I know Fire Chief from Wainwright said it. What do the rest of you guys think?
Requested it this morning.
Yeah. What do the rest of you guys think? It is getting dry. The next 10 days is going to be extremely hot. It's up to you guys.
It's supposed to be windy.
Okay? Any-
Better safe than sorry.
Anybody opposed to putting it on?
when would you have it?
Uh,
Today?
Why? You can't make an emotion effective ahead, can you? It has to what? No, but you make it comes effective, when the motion's made, it comes effective. Now, you can't say, we're making a motion to put a fire ban on a week from now.
No.
If you make a motion, it comes, if the motion passes, it comes effective now, and then we put out the well, it doesn't matter. If you want to put it on, somebody makes a motion, then we decide. I don't know, it's up to you guys.
I'll make a motion
That,
that we put a fire ban on today.
okay,
Yeah.
full ban. Any further discussion? Meeting once, going twice, going three. No, you
I
can
don't
still,
think so right now. I mean,
you can't even
everything's-
use barbecues or nothing? You can use it for food.
You can use a smoker, not a barbecue, please.
Oh, you gotta be able to use barbecue.
No, barbecues are
I'm
exempt.
just
It's open fires.
Kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It's the same ban as we
Open
always
fire.
put on. Okay.
I'm just
Okay,
kidding.
any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
You can use a barbecue.
It's carried. Okay, Dixon approach. Dixon approach. Preston, Oscar, Dixon approach.
I think Preston got a letter from transportation.
I got an email from transportation
Or-
saying Bob Dixon has requested a approach change, and you must have
Right.
information that will help him with that.
Yeah, I did.
That's what it's, doing,
Because transportation actually told Bob to ask the MD, so Bob phoned me and said it would be easier for us to do than them. I don't know how much easier it is, but it is one of our ratepayers, so I said, yeah, if he sends a letter out after talking with you, Bob, and I said, so we sent the email out to you, Preston. They want to widen the approach 10 feet on each side.
Why?
Because you can't get in and out. His approach is only 5.6 meters, 16 feet wide. And it's hard to get in and out with a semi-B train. So,
So
we-
we'll have to enter into an agreement with transportation to do the work.
yeah,
That's council's.
So we're supplying the culverts and, are they supplying anything?
We would supply, as far as I know, we would supply everything as we normally would for any
Yeah.
other approach,
yeah.
The difference is this is on provincial highway.
provincial highways. So we'd also have to do it to their stipulations as well. So there's
So does that mean paving
no
the approach?
creativity. I
No,
don't know.
no.
That I don't know. I can ask that question.
That'd be one I'd ask right away.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's paved, only for 2 feet off the road, so I don't see how they would ask for that.
Is there an approval required? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd have to go through the
So
process.
I guess if you guys want to do that, it'd be a motion that administration look into getting approval signed to rebuild the approach and then leave it up to administration to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, I'll make that motion, Bob.
okay. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now we can have a motion to adjourn. Billy? All in favor? Out of here. So, you guys want to go for lunch? You guys want to go for lunch?